it's great to be here and have the opportunity to show you some of the features of the new Excel and how it's going to change the way we work. In the previous presentation, you already got a good idea of some of these new features that are coming. In this presentation, what I want to do is just go a bit deeper in dynamic arrays and give you some ideas on how you can apply it to your work. Because as you saw, it's actually in Office 365 right now. So if you have Office 365, you can use it. If you don't have it yet because you're on the semi-annual updates, you can practice using the web because it's there. OK, so what can we do with dynamic arrays? We can create interactive dashboards. We can also solve complex problems. There are two advantages that I see personally with dynamic arrays. Number one is that your solution is automatic, right? So anytime the source data change, your solution updates. And number two is that everyone benefits. It's not just for advanced users. It sounds advanced, right, because it's called dynamic arrays, but it's actually for everyone. So basic users benefit because they can use simple formulas to achieve really complex to do really complex analysis. And advanced users who liked to create those crazy formulas, like really big formulas, they can still do that. They can use dynamic arrays, and they can combine it with legacy formulas. And we're going to see some examples in this session. OK, so as a starting point, I just want to give you just some ideas on what they could do. So I'll just show you some solutions that have already been applied, just so you can think of ways you can apply this to your files later on. Then what we're going to do is create a solution from scratch. So I'll step through it with you. We can build it together. We're going to create a mini dynamic report, and we'll even create a chart that we connect to our dynamic array formulas. OK? Great. So here, for example, this is something that a pivot table would do. We could, in this case, select what we want to show on the columns and what we want to show on the rows. So here, for example, if I change the row selection, so here we see division total. If I change it, for example, to app, we can see the apps, right? So these are all formula-driven too. So just like you saw before from Guy's presentation, it's actually just one single formula that you write, and that's it. You just have to worry about writing one single formula right. Well, in this case, it's not exactly true because there are two single formulas. There's one to get the totals on there. Now, for the column, for example, we have region now. We can change that to division, and everything updates, right? And because it's formula-driven, the moment source changes, solution changes. So you don't have to worry about doing a refresh here. OK, so that's one example. Another one is doing these type of amortization, or in this case, interest paid reports, where you want to calculate the interest rate of the interest portion of a loan. And you want to calculate it for all the months. So you want to see the interest portion for year 1, month 1, year 2, month 1, and so on. And you just have to create it once, and you can change this, and it all updates. Right? So that's the monthly payment that you're paying every month, and this is the interest portion of that payment. Next example, a loan amortization table. OK, so here, we want to break down our monthly payment to the interest portion, the principal portion, and the balance. And all of this is also dynamic array driven. But notice I've used, for example, for the balance, a legacy formula, the SUMIFS formula. Right? So you can make legacy formulas spill, just like Guy mentioned. Okay, so again, so this is for 2 years. Oops. If I change this to, for example, for 5 years, everything will update. And if we go down, let's use one of the 500 plus shortcut keys, we see it updates as well. Okay, so the idea is that everything will spill as long as nothing is blocking it. If something is blocking it, you will just get a hash spill error, and then the moment you remove the blockage, it's going to spill. Okay, so another example is things like shrinking data validation, right? So let's say in this case, we want to show the employees, and we want to make sure that we just select them once. So if I, for example, go here, and from this dropdown, let's just select the first one. So I go with Brigitte Bond. I go to the next one. Brigitte Bond is not available. Then I go to Corina. Corina is not available. So you can do these cool type of templates, like shrinking data validations. You can also use searchable data validation. So I have a searchable data validation list in my VBA course, but doing something like this now is possible. You just have to type the name, so let's say Rob, and you click on this drop-down, and you get the list of people that have the name Rob in there, right? And it doesn't have to be at the beginning. So for example, if I just put G, and I click on this, I have every name that includes G. And all of this is formula-driven. And it's not crazy formulas. It's actually simple formulas. Okay, so another example is to show you how to create dynamic calendars. This was something that was crazy to do with arrays. Like you had these huge arrays with names and crazy. Look at this formula. Isn't it beautiful? It's great. So here you can do a drop-down, change the month, everything changes. I have to admit it has some conditional formatting to just make these gray. But apart from that, you have a super simple formula to create things like dynamic calendars. And it's just one formula. It spills. Okay, so are you liking these examples? Yeah? Okay, so let's do one from scratch. Okay, just to show you how simple it is to build something like this, let's do this one from scratch. So our end result is to get this, okay? And this is basically a mini report where we want to select a department. So in this case, I've selected procurement. I want to get the list of employees who work in procurement, the maximum pay, basically how much I have to pay them. And I want to get this chart all sorted. Now, I want to have the ability to switch view, go to finance, and I have the employees, I have the pay, and I have the chart also there. And this is not pivot table chart, it's just a normal chart. I change that to sales, and I have my chart. Now, in the usual Excel, when you have a chart, it's very static, right? You include the chart range, and something like this wouldn't easily work, right? So you have to use named ranges. Now, until now with dynamic array, you also have to use names to be able to feed this in charts, but they're very simple names, and we'll see this together. Okay, so let's create this together. Okay, right here. Okay, so let's say that I get this list from my boss, I have the list of employees and type. What is in type? We have fixed salary and maximum bonus. So we have two different types of accounts. We have a fixed salary, what we are paying each employee every month, and then the maximum bonus that they could get. So we want to calculate based on this the maximum pay that we have to pay each person. Okay, so the values here. Now, first off, I'm missing some information here. You saw my end result, right? What is missing from here? The department, exactly. So let's say I call HR or someone, and I get this list from department, employee ID, and the employee name. And it's already formatted as a table called master. Okay, so I get this from them. Now I want to include the department here. So first thing I'm going to do, just to make my life simpler when it comes to updating this data set, is to turn this into an official Excel table. What's the shortcut key for that? Control-T. Okay, usually the next thing I do is take away the table formatting to just go back to my own default formatting. And the next thing I do is to give this table a name so that I can recognize it in my formulas. I'll just call this salary for now. Okay, so let's insert a new column. And we're going to call this department. Now, which formula can be used for this? Great, you guys are experts already. So, XLOOKUP. First thing, what are we looking for? The name, so let's go with this one. The lookup array, master, which one is that? This one. So are we going to have problems that department is on one side? No, not with XLOOKUP, right? See, that's why I made this example like this. Return array, department. Do we need anything else? Not necessarily, right? Because all the stuff you see in square brackets, they are optional. It's not needed. And the great thing is that Microsoft just added, I don't know if you heard about this, the if not found argument. Do you know what that's for? Yeah, the if error. So you know when you do a VLOOKUP and you get #NA, right? It's not found, it's annoying. You have to put it inside if error. You don't have to do that anymore. You just specify what you want to have in not found, right? So you just put like quote, quote if you don't want to see it. So in this case, we actually want to see if we have errors because we need to assign the persons if they're not there. So press enter, we have a table. Everything spills anyhow in tables, which is great. Okay, so we get departments set up now. Now, remember we had that drop down to select the department. Let's say we don't want to fix it manually to finance, sales, procurement. We actually want to make it dynamic because maybe we get more departments in there. We get HR, IT, and so on. So on the side here, I'm going to create an automatic unique list of these. And in a real world, when you're doing this, you probably have your source data on a separate tab. You have your dashboard on a separate tab. And you're going to do all these all these preparations also on a separate tab. It's not going to be on the same tab. But just for the sake of presentation, I'm putting everything on the same tab. Okay, so you saw some dynamic array formulas that were being used. What was the formula? Do you remember what was the formula? Unique. It's easy to remember, right? Okay, so unique, the array is the department. Okay, that's pretty much it for unique. You have some optional arguments there if your data is organized if you want to have by column, you can specify the column. If you want exactly once, so I don't know, some people call this a distinct list. You can use that option. In this case, we just want to get a unique list of items that are in there. Okay, and we get that. Our results spill. Just highlight the first where I have the formula differently. That's the formula for this. Now, here's the thing with referencing spilled ranges. So there is a new reference operator, if you can call it that, is if you reference the first cell and then you put the hash sign, that means give me the entire spilled range, no matter how long it is. Right? So if I do that, I get the whole range. You also get that sign. If you forget what it is, you just have to highlight the area, and you already get the sign there as well. Okay, so that's how we can reference the spilled range. Now, we're going to use that for data validation because we want to get that drop down. So let's go to data. Data validation. We're going to go with list. And our source here is the first cell, and we put the hash sign. Okay, so that's pretty much it. And we go OK, and we have our spilled range. Okay, so here, let me just show you how this updates automatically. If we add an HR here, notice HR got added here, and HR is added here. Okay, and if we want to sort this, because we want to have it in alphabetic order, let's just put this inside the sort function. And the default for sort is to sort in ascending order. So if we're fine with ascending, close bracket, and we have everything sorted, and is automatically sorted here as well. Okay, so that's that part of the job done. Now, let's go and create our report. So what we need to have the employees. Let's put them here. Oops. And we want to have the maximum pay. So in this case, the maximum pay is basically the sum of our value column for each employee, right? Because we want to add up their fixed salary and that maximum bonus. And in this example, we're going to assume that each employee just works for one department. We don't have employees, the same employee working for different departments, just in this example, to keep it simpler. So first, let's get a list of employees that work for the department that we select. Does anyone know the function we can use here? Filter. Right? So we have a live filter now that automatically filters. Our array is basically the answer that we want to get back. Okay? Array is always the answer, especially when it comes in the first argument you want to get back. Then the include argument of filter works similar to the logical testing of if function, right? Where you say, is this equal to that? It's the same for filter, except you do it on a range, on an array. So we're going to say, basically filter employees if department equals this one. Okay? Now, there is also an if empty argument. So if it doesn't find something, instead of getting an error, you can say what you want back. In this case, we know that we have employees. We're not going to have errors, so I'm just going to skip that argument and press enter. I get a filtered list of employees in finance. What's wrong with this list? It's not sorted. And there's another problem. It's not unique, right? Because for each person, we have them 2 times. We have once their fixed salary, and on the bottom here, we have them again with maximum bonus, right? So we want to get a unique list of these people, so we just put this in the unique function again. Okay, so now it's our unique list. Does this update? Let's test. It updates fine. Now, before we think about sorting, what makes sense or how we can sort this, let's try to figure out the maximum pay. What function could we use here? SUMIFs, exactly. So SUMIFs are sum range, just the value. The criteria range 1. The names, right? So in this case, we're not going to do it for department because each employee is just by department. So that's that. And the criteria itself, this one, hash, exactly. We want SUMIFs to spill, right? We don't want to drag formulas down. If you start to work with spilled ranges, try to get the rest to spill too, right? Because then everything is automatic. So close and send this down. Okay, so I'm just going to format this. Now, unfortunately, until now, we don't have spilled formatting. Maybe we get it. Maybe we don't. But it doesn't exist now, so we have to format it ourselves. I'm just going to format this and a bit longer in case my list expands. Now let's talk about sorting. What would be a good way to sort this? By the pay, right? How could we do that though? Sort by, yes. So we have two different functions of sort. One is sort, and one is sort by. Right? Does anyone know the difference between sort by? So basically sort sorts your data, but it has to be available in your end result. So whatever you're sorting on has to be a part of your answer, a part of your solution. Sort by sorts on things that are not a part of your solution. You're sorting it by something that's in your source data. Right? So now to solve something like this, there isn't just one method. There are really different ways you can go about this. And it really depends on how comfortable you feel with Excel. Do you like to use helper columns and helper cells, or do you prefer to have more complicated formulas? I'll show you quickly two versions of getting this done. So let's say you want to keep it simple and you want to use the sort function. And you're okay to having helper cells. You can get this, so you can treat this like a helper thing, and you can get a spilled range out of both of these separate spilled ranges. You just have to use this syntax. So you reference the first spilled range, you put the hash sign, then you put the colon, and then you reference the second cell. And you press enter, and you have one spilled range, right? You see the blue border? You get one spilled range out of the two separate spilled ranges. Now here, your formula can be very simple if you're sorting this. You just use sort, and you just go to the optional arguments, and you define a sort index. Sort index is like, do you want column 1, column 2? Right? It's 1, 2. So in this case, we want 2. Oh, not 3, we don't have. 2. And sort order is ascending is default. Descending would be a -1. So let's just do ascending, and we get our list in ascending order. Just to see it better, let me just apply the same formatting. You see, so that's a simple way of doing this. And you don't have to do complicated formulas. You can use helper cells if that's easier to do. Now, let's say you like complicated formulas and you want to do it in one go. Right? So in this case, you can use sort by, because we're sorting this end result by something that's not in our end result. It's in our source data. So we're going to do sort by. The array we want to sort, that's fine, right? That's our array. I'm actually going to copy it because we're going to need it in a second. Then it's by what do you want to sort? Now all we have to do is generate this array under max pay, we just have to generate it in one formula, right? We just have to generate it in the memory of the formula so Excel can sort. So we're going to do SUMIFS, just what we did before. Our sum range is this. Our criteria range 1, what is that? That's the employee, right? Just the formula we had. Now here, it's kind of like, well, we need to sort by itself, right? But we can't reference itself because it's a circular reference. But we just have to put the formula that we got from before. Okay, we're sorting it by that. I think we just have to close a few brackets here. And that's it. Right? So you can... So you can still get crazy with dynamic array formulas if that's what you like. So our report is pretty much done. We have procurement data sorted. If someone joins HR, so let's say Richard Elliott is in HR, we have HR, and we just have Richard Elliott in HR. Right? And it's a table. If you add more data, it's going to be automatically there. Okay, so this is the calc error. So if something doesn't exist, this is a new error that you get, is hash calc. And this you can get rid of if you put the not found argument in filter. Remember, I skipped that because we have no one in HR. So we could say no one exists in here, and we'll be fine. Okay, so one last thing to just just to finish this report off, let's create a chart based on this. Okay, so how would that work? Actually, let's switch first to procurement when I do this. I'm just going to highlight this, go to Insert, and we're going to insert a bar chart. Okay, let's just get rid of these. Add data labels. And let's just do one thing that I usually do is with the gap width. Let's reduce that to 50 and change this to a gray, which is my favorite color. I hope that doesn't say anything about my personality. Okay, so does this chart update automatically? It would be great if it did, but unfortunately it doesn't. Okay, just the way it is right now, it doesn't update automatically. So there is one little tweak we have to make here to get this to update, because you see we're missing names, right? We're missing salespeople from here. So, and that tweak is to use a named range. Does anyone work with named ranges? You've seen that? Okay, a few of you. It's really easy. So for this purpose, it's super easy. I'll just show you for the ones who don't know. So all we have to do is basically create two named ranges for the two axes that we have here, right? For the horizontal here and for the vertical here. Get two ranges that spill, and we feed that to the chart. To do that, we just go to Name Manager. We get to Formulas, Name Manager, and we do New. So let me just zoom in here. Okay, so let's create one for employees. I'll just call it M. All you have to do is give it a name. And for the range here, we just want to say take the spilled range. So what do we add? Hash, exactly. That's it. Is that right? Is G5? Okay, so that created a spilled range of our employees. Now let's just do the same thing and create a spilled range for our maximum pay. I'll just call this pay. This time it's this cell, and hash, and OK. Okay, so we have two names, very easy, very simple formulas. That's that. So next step here is to feed those names to our charts. And this is something you can do in the usual Excel right now. So if you want dynamic ranges, you can feed names to charts, because charts can't take formulas like offsets and index match. You can't feed them to charts, right? It's direct references or names. So if I right mouse click and go to select data, I just have to update the series. So edit a series. And here, instead of using the series values, I'm going to use the name. Right? So one thing you have to be very, 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 very careful of. Does anyone know this? Do not delete everything. Okay, don't delete everything. Just delete from the $sign, but don't delete from the exclamation mark. Okay, if you delete it, you will get an error. So you have to keep the name of the tab in there. Now, what did I call this one? Emp, right? So if you forget, and I always type it wrong when I go back to my chart, just click on F3. You get the list of names. So is this emp or is this pay? It's pay, right? Because this is the inside. I mean the numbers part. So I call that pay and go OK and OK. Now this part, that's my vertical axis for the bar chart. I do that again. And I just delete this. And let's go with emp. Click on OK and OK and OK again. So let's test this. I go to finance. It's super fast to make this dashboard, right? And imagine if you didn't have to explain it. It'll be like done in 5 minutes. But don't be too fast in your work, because your boss will give you a lot more work. Just pretend. OK, so that was one example from scratch. We just before we switch to questions, I have 2 more minutes. OK, I just want to show you another thing, and we'll share these files, right, later, so that you can take a look at them yourself as well. But there were tasks that were so difficult to do in Excel. Like if you ever wanted to split number and text, and they were mixed up. Like it wasn't number first and then text. Like you could have stuff like this. It's really difficult to do. But with dynamic arrays, you can actually make this really simple. And in 3 minutes, I'll try to see how much of the formula we can do. Let's just try to do the number portion of this, and then we'll see how we can apply that to the text portion. Because this way I can introduce you to another dynamic array formula. It's called the sequence function. Now, sequence at the beginning seemed a little bit useless to me, but then I realized the power that it has and how you can combine it with other formulas to make the best out of it. Basically, what sequence does is it just creates index numbers, like 1, 2, 3, 4, automatically. You can create different types of index numbers, like you can say, give me every 3rd value, every 4th value. You can split in rows and columns. It's flexible. And we can use it to solve this type of problem. So for sequence, you tell it, for example, how many rows do you want it to spill. Let's say if I just do like 3, 3, and I just skip these start and step arguments, because by default they are 1. This is what you get. If I do 3, 3, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, if I say that go start from number 2 and step 4, I get this. Okay, so it just creates index numbers in here. Now let's say in this case, I want to get a spelled array of each text, of each letter. I want to spell each character. So I'm going to say skip rows because I just want each one to be in one row. For columns, I want it to be as long as the text is. Do you know the function for that? The len function. Again, I'm going to reference this. And the other ones are optional, start and step. It's fine. We can skip them. We're fine with one. Okay, so if I pull this down in this case, because I'm spelling this way, I get the number of characters here. Now, do you know a function I can use to actually get the character out? The mid function. Right? So with the mid function, I can say my text is this one. Right? Let's do that again. My text is this. The start number is the sequence I want it to spell. And the number of characters, one at a time. Okay, so I get each character spelled in there. Now, how can we just get the numbers out? Divide, filter, yes. So I'm going to end up filtering this list, but I need to have, you remember filter had the include argument. So somehow we need to tell it what to include. And I want to include anything from this list, that's a number. Now here's the thing, when you spell using the mid function, and I go on F9, numbers are text. Okay, everything is seen as text. So what we want to do, ultimately then, is to force this to become a value, right? Because now, when I go on F9, we have error, error, and numbers. And then I want to check, is this a number or not? So when I go on F9, we see false, false, true, 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 right? And filter, the include argument of filter, always filters for true. Always filters for true. That's how you can remember the include argument. That's what we can use in the include argument of filter. Okay, so basically, let's just finalize this. We're going to filter. What's our array? This one, right? Let's see about the brackets. Okay, so that's our array. The include argument is this a number? And if empty, we're just going to leave it out, and we just get the numbers out. Okay, so we have the numbers. Okay, actually, then let's not do is empty. For the if empty, let's actually use that one, not to get the calc error. So where did that argument come in? Here. So let's put nothing, and we get rid of that one. So now let's combine this together. What's the formula we can combine all these values? Text join. See, we can get creative with our formulas. Text join, delimiter. We don't need a delimiter. True, false, we don't care about that. We just skip, and that's our text, and we have text join. That's it. So just before I... Okay, it's not that easy, I'll admit. Okay, just for the text part, the only thing we need to change here is just to say it's not a number, right? We just need to reverse that argument, and we should be done with that. Not is number, where's my bracket? Not there. logical here. Okay, that's that. So the moment we add something here, if I put a Z, it comes out, it's all automatic. Okay? Great, so these were the things I wanted to show you. I just wanted to give you some ideas that you can apply to your work once you get dynamic arrays. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila. Maybe we have time for one question, if you have.
This was very interesting, but what about the performance when you have the same long formula 3 times in the big formula?
Yeah, so Joe McDade, what I heard him say about performance was, on the one side, it's great because you have one formula instead of many formulas. On the other side, because you're still working with arrays, the moment you get to a huge number of data, and it really depends on the formula that you're using, it can be slower than using normal formulas. So for example, I tested this with the if function. If I fed the if dynamic array ranges, and I went over, I don't know if it was 20, 30,000 lines of data, it started to become slower than the not using dynamic ranges. So I think it's just like you have to see how much your data is, how complex your formulas are, and just see which one works better in that case for you.
Thank you, Leila. Applause.
Thank you.